If you like this podcast or the previous ones, please consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Frankie'sPod. It just goes to help fund the software and the hosting. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. So tonight I'm talking to Amber GH. I'm not going to try a name. She can tell you what it is. I'll put it in a notes below. Amber joined the medics in 2005 and served for about 11 years.
11
and she's
years.
got quite a story to tell. Yeah. Hey, Amber, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm brilliant. Thanks for coming on. Like I tell everybody, if it wasn't for people like yourself, I wouldn't be able to do this. I'd just be sat talking to myself and probably get no one looking at me, and I'd probably get locked up. So
You
the
would
same
not.
questions for
It's so
every.
normal.
It's the same questions for you that I ask everybody else. So it's just like, where did you grow up? Why did you join the military? What was it like? Why did you leave? And what have you done since? And I think we're going to have a good, interesting story with yours because I've looked up a bit of your backstory and stuff like that. Don't really know that much about you. I don't really like to know that much about people before they come on because I like to be, I wouldn't say entertained, but I like to, well, it is entertaining because that's why people listen to the podcast. It's either, they want to know about what the person did or it's entertaining to them. So if you just want to crack on and we'll start off where you grew up and why did you actually join the military?
So I grew up in Lowestoft, Suffolk, where I live now. Probably shouldn't say that. But I grew up
Yeah.
here in Lowestoft, Suffolk. I don't live in Suffolk, stalkers. No, I'm joking. You can get rid of that bit. But I grew up in Lowestoft, Suffolk, and I grew up with my 3 brothers and my mum, and what I now know was my stepdad. It was a bit of a rough childhood. There was abusive parenthood, there violence in the house, and then I was sexually abused by the stepdad, and so I wanted to kind of escape. And I mean, I started doing boxing first of all to like get stronger, which was
Good on you.
which is weird. I started at 11 doing boxing to like try and defend myself a little bit, and then I went to an armed forces day at high school, and that's when I was like, "That's my get out card. I'm joining the army." And I was like, "That's it. I joined the army, escaped." Um, and then joined in 2005. I did want to join the RLC though, but I'm too short, so they wouldn't let me in.
I didn't know there was a height restriction in the RLC. You must be tiny.
No, sorry. So they were like, "Well, you can be a medic," and I was like, "Well, I want to be a physical training instructor," and they were like, "You'd have to do that later." So I joined as a medic, and
Yeah.
that's where I was a medic. Yeah, a bit random, really. I
So
had no
I
intentions,
don't
no
want to
plans.
I don't want to dwell on like what happened to you as a child and stuff like that. But did anything come of that? Did he get caught? Did he?
So I went to. I was living with him because both they split up, so I was living with him,
Right.
which was pretty rough because I would push my wardrobe to my door every night so he couldn't get in after that. And I don't know, as a 11-year-old girl, you've got to be strong enough
Yeah.
somewhere to push a ward. But survival was kicking it. I was already fighting in survival mode then, so I've always been in that sort of mode. But years later, I like ran away and then tried to run to my mum, and then kind of went through courts and I had to do a video camera thing. But because it was like
Yeah.
years later, they were like, "Oh, there's no evidence, daddy, buddy bar." Although he had raped my mother as well, and they went through the courts for that. But that there was a time period. Can you remember when it was like legal to rape your
Yeah.
wife or something? So he got away with it
Oh,
then as well. So yeah,
wow. There's some
yeah,
scum out there,
God
isn't there?
knows. There really
There you go.
is.
So what was it like turning up at training then? I mean, you wouldn't have known what it was going to be like, or did you have an inkling? Did you think you knew what to expect?
Well, have you frozen? Oh, you're back. I kind of
No, just
binge
if
watched.
it does that, ignore it. It'll just keep going.
Oh, okay. I binge watched The Band
Okay.
of Brothers so I could about, about the
It's not quite the
military.
same, is it? Well, yeah. It'll...
No, it's not. There was no Cold War. So I was like, yeah, I've got all this, and then selection and stuff, and because I was quite physically fit, because I used to do athletics 100 and 200 meters, and I was quicker than boys and winning races at 9 years
Yeah.
old. And then boxing on top of that, I was always physically fit anyway. So, but even though I was physically fit, basic training was still really hard because of tabbing. I didn't really know about the weight or tab, like carrying all that weight, and I
Yeah.
never prepped for that prior. So I really struggled with my little legs and tabbing. I'm not going to lie about it.
So did I. I'm 6 foot tall and I've got a 28-inch inside leg. I've got this like snooker table legs, and I can't run. I never could. I couldn't keep up with bloody anybody. So I know it's like having little
Mm.
legs.
I was quick. I like my
So,
quickest mile and a half
yeah.
was about nine, probably 9:10 was my quickest mile and a
Bloody hell, I
half.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere near that. I'm not saying I'm no. No comment on my quickest one ever. It's probably 10:30. I think. Bang on a button. That's all it needed to be. So what was training like for you
Exactly.
then? So, did you fit in, or did you suffer? What was it like?
I mean, I got in trouble a few times. I remember my bed getting flipped, and I left my
That's
locker
absolutely wrong, mate.
undone, and all my kit was out of it in bin bags scattered around. I had to find it, and the good old school training where you
Yeah.
might get a little that, but I enjoyed it. I felt fine, even though it was like really hard. I know I felt immediately like I belonged somewhere, and I wasn't scared of the people around me. I knew we had each other's back. And for the first time, I felt a sense of belonging and family. And that sounds really cliche,
Yeah.
but that's the truth. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound cliche at all, because I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was about the same time you were there. I interviewed one of my old battery commanders recently, and he was CEO of Purbright, and he was telling us, in the podcast about a young girl who was there who
I was
didn't
at
really have any family.
basketball. Mm,
Right. Well, she didn't really have any family. She'd kind of similar experience to you, their home life. And when he was doing the pass out parade, he marched down the line and saying it, and said, "I take it you've got no family." She goes, "No," and he just said, like, he looked left and right and said, "Look, this is your family now." And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I walked off really quick," and he burst out crying. I was like, I was sat there going, "Fucking hell, shut up!" I was like that
oh,
myself.
no.
But I mean, yeah, there's people that you get a lot of like backlash on like TikTok and Facebook and stuff like that. When I put like a video up with people, and saying, "Oh, yeah, you join the army, the cadden fodder, and this, that, and the other." Then people don't understand. They've never been in the military.
No.
They don't know what it's about. And it is a family thing. And for someone who's had an unpleasant childhood like yourself, and all of a sudden you are surrounded by people who you learn to live with and you learn to trust, and that's the big thing. It's
Mm,
trust. If you can trust them, they do become your family, and you have to trust them. You're going to you trust each other with your life. You might not appreciate that while you're doing it or while you're in training, but that comes. You know
yeah.
what I mean? It's cool.
It's a
So
strange
what do you think?
feeling,
What
isn't it?
what did you think then? Yeah, I mean, you do. I wouldn't say you make friends for life, but you do,
Mm,
because you can just bump
you
into each other
do.
again later on. And you just carry on talking, even if you don't keep in contact and stuff like that. It is just one of them
And
things. It's a good thing about the military.
even like we're both ex-military, even if we never served together, there's a mutual respect and camaraderie between each other, and we'll be like, right brother, right sister. It's automatically just
Yeah,
there for some reason. It's just like ingrained in our
yeah.
souls almost.
I mean, it's like, when I get people to come on a podcast, I normally talk for about 20 minutes beforehand, like what we were. And we were getting carried away. We could have
Mm.
been going on all night. And it's, I couldn't do that with, I couldn't do that with civvies, because you've got nothing in common, type of thing.
It's
I am
harder.
attempting this weekend. Yeah, this weekend I'm going to attempt to interview somebody who's never been in the military, and we're going to talk about his life in musical bands and stuff like that. I'm dreading that. I don't know what's going to come out like. Might not publish that one.
So I'll give you a bit for
So
later
from
on. That's the
Basingbourne, yeah, go on.
musicians are actually really emotional, and they're great conversationalists. Definitely, that'd be easy.
I hope so. It should be an interesting story when I get it out of him. So straight from Basingbourne, and you've got your new family then, and you're feeling a bit more settled and everything. So off to do your medical training. What was that like? Your phase 2 or as well?
At Keogh Barracks. So when did I get? I think
Yeah,
I was just turned 17, got to Keogh Barracks, and we had a bit more freedom there compared to like basic
yeah.
training. So we could go out, and that was, like in the Goose and Aldershot and stuff. So that was quite fun. You do like, but it was like being back at school as well because we were in classes all day. And I was
Mm.
never very good in school because of that growing up situation. I was always like running out of school or causing a bit of havoc in school. So that was like my first like proper experience of like sitting there in school and just like actually reading notes. And like, my theory side wasn't very, very good. I had to resit a couple of theory exams, but my practical passed with flying colours. We would go out on the weekend and have some fun, and we would go shopping. And you had to be in by 12 o'clock, though, so the restrictions. But I do remember getting in trouble once at Keogh, and I got my first ROPs, my first ROPs, which was awful. I never had it again.
They're not that bad. I've had, God, I've had a
It
few
was
of them in my time.
horrible watching your
Yeah.
mates go out the front gate and you're there like with a
That's
broom
not.
ready
Yeah,
for show parade.
that's not a good bit. Yeah, but they're not bad. They're not going to make you pregnant, are they? Can't you know what I mean? So what was your practical training like then? So I mean, like I said before, I'd worked with medics for a while and stuff, and we'd done like the maximum I've ever done is like a team medics course and stuff. And we didn't get to do the battle
Mm.
simulation stuff or anything like that. I've done it afterwards, for different things. So what was all that like? Your initial shock into learning what can happen to a body and this, that, and how to treat it and stuff. I imagine that was quite mind numbing to start with.
The theory side, yeah, that was I was so confused because of all these big words suddenly. I was just like, like what are these big words? But the practical side, really fun. The more gorier they made it, the more advanced they wanted it, the more interesting and like fun it was. That sounds
Yeah.
really terrible, but the more intrigued I was, the more I seemed to, I think I got some weird brain where I have to be like pushed a little bit too far. So then I push
Yeah.
myself harder. Practically, not theoretically. But practically, I don't know, I just loved it. I was just like, yeah, this is cool. Apart from when you had to do stretcher racing with the dead weight, that was really hard. The first time it was like this, you'd be crying sometimes, and they would never put the smallest one on the stretcher. They'd always put the biggest one on the stretcher, and you just think this is really hard. But you understand later on that there's a reason that you
Yeah.
keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and it's very important, that training. But that was hard, and I used to think, God, this was like on a Band of Brothers you watch. I felt like I was in the Band of Brothers
You
then.
know. So what was the first unit you went to then from there?
Full med reg straight to Aldershot, so it wasn't far. It wasn't a far move from Keogh. And then soon as we finished from Keogh, straight into full med reg, straight into pre-deployment training. So 17,
Wow.
18, straight in. And then pre-deployment training, well, that was a notch up from basic and Keogh Barracks. That was 10
Yeah.
times harder. And I'm glad I did it when I did it because now I wouldn't be able to do it physically.
I
But
mean,
yeah, that
it's a big ask. to go straight from
Yeah.
training, phase 2, and then into pre-deployment training. You
And
haven't
then
got time
deploying at
to get
18.
settled. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there was
you haven't
no,
settled in the regiment or anything.
it was
That's
like constant
mad.
training for like from 16 years
Yeah,
old to 18, 2 years of training, it felt like. And that was really, really hard because you're then implementing soldiering skills and I mean, you do in Kia as well, but I mean, on a whole new level with
yeah.
infantry and really going for it. And I was just like, okay. But I will tell you, you can never be prepared for war, but physically, I was prepared. Not mentally, I wasn't, but physically,
No,
my body had been pushed to its limits from all of this continuous training. And it's like I almost built up stamina because it was constant. So I was then at my physically my fittest, I would say. And I was, yeah, I
so
didn't
you
struggle
mentioned
with the
there
weight.
about you didn't struggle, or you were okay with the physical side.
Mm,
But you almost mentioned there about the mental side. You knew, I mean, at the age of 18, I don't think anyone appreciates what conflict's going to be like. I mean, in my day, we watched, like I read fucking Commando comics and stuff like that, and like you said, Band of Brothers, but that doesn't prepare you for it, and nothing
it
can.
doesn't.
I suppose when I joined, there wasn't much going on apart from like Northern Ireland, and the guys,
Which
that'd
was
be your
still
first tour
pretty.
for a lot of people. Yeah,
Mm,
don't get me wrong. It wasn't like Afghan though. I mean, it was different. I'm lucky I never did Afghan, but I did Iraq and I did Bosnia and I did Ireland a couple of times and stuff like that. But doing the first tour, going out in Ireland, all of a sudden you were like, as a young, as a young squaddy, you were like, fucking hell, that's real. I'm stood on a street corner with a real gun with real bullets, and this is the fucking hell. It hits home.
yeah.
But even though you get trained for it, you can't mentally prepare yourself until you actually get there and do it. That's what it was
Hmm.
like for me anyway. And I think it is for a majority of people. Did you find that as well?
Exactly. I mean, I've gone from survival from 11 years old anyway. I think that's why
Yeah,
mentally I could do all of the training but that mentally you're still role playing and training, aren't you? You're pretending, you're
yeah,
playing duff. So when, like you said, when you get to the real place, you're like, oh, I'm in war. And my first ever time leaving the country was on that plane to Afghanistan. And I was just like, it's not holiday, is it? It's like, and they're turning all the
yeah,
lights out and then putting our helmets on, and I was like, whoa. And I was. That's the first time I think since I was a child at 11 years old that I'd felt fear, but it was a different fear. It was. I could watch Band of
yeah.
Brothers 100 times. That would not have prepared me for the real thing ever. And have
Okay.
you heard people say before? You know what you're signing up for. I've had comments like that, like, well, you know what you're signing up for when you got mental health. Yeah, you do, but you're not pre-
Y-
you'll never be fully prepared for
Yeah,
what you might face. Never ever. In life, in general, you'll never be prepared for. So you can't fully prepare what you're going to face in a war zone either. No matter how much training you do, no matter how many movies you watch or how many stories you hear, until you're in it, you can't prepare for it really. But in that moment, it's
no.
like, oh my goodness, I'm actually at war. I'm in a war zone, and that's when you really have to grow up a little bit. And at 18 years old, you're
Yeah,
not even fully developed in the brain until you're
I'm
21.
55 and I still. the, I mean that
I'm
for
still
people to
not.
say that yeah, you knew what you signed up for.
Mm,
You're right. Yeah, I signed up to join the army. Yeah, all right, you're going to go to war. So when I joined the army, that wasn't even, you never thought of that at all. You never thought of like, oh, I'm going to join the army, go to war. Join the army, go to Northern Ireland, or anything like that. When yous lot joined in the 2000s, yous joined up knowing that probably within 18 months of you walking through that careers office are going to be in Helmand. Yous knew that by joining up. I'm not, and you get idiots. Well, no,
Well,
idiots who
I
go,
didn't, because I was so young. I was 16 when I joined. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't watch the news or politics or, do you know what I mean?
yeah, but it's like you get the old thing. Oh, it was harder in my day, and they've had it easy in training
Mhm.
nowadays. And you're probably saying they've got it easy in training compared to when I was in training, and this, that, or the other. And it was, the people from the Crimean War were saying they had it harder than I had it when I joined in the 80s and stuff. And it's
We
all
all say
bollocks. Yeah, we all say
it.
it, and it's just, you get civvies going, well, whatever, it's like that, and you go, no, no, we're allowed to say that because we went through it. It's our shared life type of thing.
Yeah,
My training was harder than yours because I'm older. And it isn't. It's
and
just
they
different.
definitely have it easier
The
now.
boys are in training now. No, they don't. It's different. It's just different. That's all it is. It's different society for a start.
Hmm.
They're different. People are different from my day to you. We've got different. I wouldn't say standards or thoughts or anything like that, but we are a different breed. There's a generation gap between us. And the same is now for people who are joining up now. The 16, 17-year-olds that are joining now, and they are different people to what we are. But
They've got to change with the
I'll get knocked out
times.
with them, don't worry. Yeah,
Well, they've got
exactly.
to change with
And,
the times. There's
they
different
can still do the job.
technology, and
Yeah. But they can still do the
it
job
just
when it gets
happens.
called on. They're there to do that.
Mm.
So it is what it is. But for yourself, I mean, it must have been like a deer in the headlights. All of a sudden you're just there.
Yeah.
And how so what was that like? You've got off the plane, you've got to, were you at Bastion or did you go up to, where
No,
did you go from there?
I can't remember where we landed, but I remember we had to run off the plane, and then our Bergens were like over here, and we had to grab our Bergens, run inside this building, and then we're all like in there, just like waiting. Then they're like, turn your phones off, hand your phones in, because we weren't allowed to take our phones. That I know people can now, I assume, because I see people having pictures all the time. But we had to hand our phones in. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is happening? I'm so scared, so disorientated. I had no idea. And there was loads of us that felt the same way because we were all just newbies coming out of Keo and doing pre-deployment training
Yeah.
together. And we're all as like a deer in headlights. What is happening? As well as being petrified, thinking, will we be bombed at any minute? That was going through my head as well. Like, and then we're being told you can't use your phones, and then we're being told about if like what happens if you get kidnapped and if people get your family's information, and like they were telling us all the stuff ready to prep for, and it was just like this is a lot. And my civvy friends are at home and out on the town,
Yeah.
and I'm here, and it's just like we're all 18, but they're at home or in university, and we're out in this war field, still a teenager, and it's just like, okay. But for me, it was all right once we went from there to Bastion, but that was literally within
Hmm.
2 days or something, and then we just sort of, on the range, doing your firing, just make sure, and a bit of adjusting to the heat, and then I went to Fob Robinson. And the first real reality after that was my first casualty, because then my medic training had to kick in, and I cried after that because I was like, okay, this is my
So
first,
how
and
quick was that after you got there?
with that 6 weeks, so not long, yeah,
Wow.
so very
That
soon,
must have
and
like
that
blew your mind.
yeah, and that casualty died. So it's not only my first
Oh
casualty,
shit.
but my first dead body. And I was just like, and there was a lot of procedures that me and the nurse and the other medic were doing to try and say, but can I be graphic on here?
Yeah, you can say whatever you
Yeah.
want.
His
Yeah.
brains was blown out. Like, so you could see all his brains. And I mean, I know we've done simulations and practicing, but then you're seeing the real thing, and the noises that were coming out of him when we're trying to like blow his lungs and chest drain him. And it was just, we were doing every procedure that I felt like was the serious ones that we would practice. They were now real,
Hmm.
happening in real time. And it's like, this isn't a doll. This is real. This is this people. This is lives in our hands. And I think he was dead before he'd come into us. It was just, the last rigor mortis. But it was just, when you're just there shocked, like, and I walked out of that ISIL container, cried, and for a couple of nights after, I had nightmares from his face and his
Yeah.
brains, and it really, and I had to like shake myself and was like, this is your reality now. They're not dolls, but you need to try and try and remember what you practice and try and almost block out that they are humans in a weird way, to not, you can't cry after every casualty. You've got to be harder than this. I was like telling myself off for crying.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can't cry. You're in war. You're a soldier now. But it was just like, the reality is we're humans, and that does affect us when we see stuff like that. And
Yeah,
it
of
is
course it does.
shocking for the
It does.
first time.
I mean, you're right. The first time, I experienced death as I on a tour. I didn't see anything like that. It was just one of my mates got killed in Ireland. He got shot,
So,
and you were like, "Fucking hell!" You know, I mean, that brings it home. I mean, as much as it did for you then, but you do just have to crack on and get on, and when you're in
mm,
the environment that we find ourselves in the military like that, it's easier to move on straight away and deal with it later. But that has its repercussions as well, as I found out,
PTSD.
and as you found out. Yeah, it does that later on. But at the time, you can kind of, and I think it's the training we've had, and also the bravado and the way everybody else acts as well. You've just got to crack on because you've got a job to do, and you can't stop every time something like that happens. You've got to deal with it, and you've got to deal with it later, unfortunately, and that's
Yeah,
just the way it is. And is that the way you felt as well? I mean, you touched on it there, and you said you had a cry that
exactly
night,
that.
and you cried a couple of times, but you just got to get on with it.
Especially as you're the medic, you're the one
Mhm.
that the guys will come to when they're feeling low. You haven't got time to be sad because they need you. So
Yeah,
the moment you are sad, it's kind of what use you. And I realized that I can't be sad at every single casualty. I'm gonna have to just block, 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 do my job, get on with it. And also it's a reality of death can happen here. We are in a war zone and people will die.
yeah,
And you need to step up your game and you need to be switched on uh, to be saving people's lives. And if your infantry guys or the artillery guys or the RTR boys or any of them, if they're feeling down, they need to be coming, having someone to talk to be 100%. They need someone to download to so they can perform, so they can do their job. And unfortunately, as a medic, you're not only medically trained, you then become the therapist too. And so,
that bit must have been hard. I mean, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. That all of a sudden you become the crux for them as well. You know,
mm,
um, How did you react to that? Did
kind of
it
got
did, did
used
it
to
did
it,
it
to be
sink in?
fair.
Did you get did you could you compartmentalize what they
Yeah,
were
I've
saying
always
to you, when they were downloading
been quite good at, always naturally from very young. It was something I've naturally been good at, if
yeah.
that makes sense. Putting my own
Yeah.
feelings aside and listening to someone else's. I've always been able to do that. So it was that bit came, even though at first time very easy to me. It was just having a conversation, the guys downloading. To be fair, I never really process what they download, if that makes sense. I'm listening and
Yeah,
I'm
it's just
being there for
in there
them,
and out there. Yeah.
and
Yeah, I know what you mean.
obviously the empathy, but I've never really gone away and thought. massively thought about it unless it's something concerning and I need to be worried. Then otherwise, it's
Yeah.
just it never affects me really. That side of things, if that makes sense, unless it's really something that someone's suicidal, like later on after service. But during that time, it's just
Yeah.
ensuring that they're not going to do something stupid on the battlefield. Really,
And unfortunately, that does happen as well. Some people
yeah,
can't, you don't know what's happening in someone's mind. I lost a friend again on the same tour in Northern Ireland. A good mate of mine, Coops, he took his own life in one of the sangers. And nobody knew why. No one knew the full story, and they never will. They never will, because there's no one here to tell us, because he's not here, so nobody really knows
yeah,
why he's done it. And it's only
that's sad.
recently through. Well, it's weird because it was one of them things where nobody knew, and there was lots of rumours because of that. Nobody knew, and nobody knew the days up to that, and the true story of what happened until, fortunately, I had one of his mates on the podcast, and it was the first time he'd actually spoke about it. And I've had lots of people tell me afterwards that, it's good to talk. You know that, I know
Yeah,
that. That he, after he'd spoke about that, it put a lot of other people's minds at rest because they didn't know what had happened. And there was that many
so he's
rumours
answered
going
some
around. There was all,
questions.
yeah, he answered a lot of questions for a lot of people, including me, and we're very grateful for him for that. So you sitting there and listening to the guys coming down and getting things off their chest and all that, that's probably as important as doing battlefield first aid. It really is just for their mental health.
It's all medical in one
So what was
way,
it?
whether it's brain or body.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what was it like after that then? After the first, you've dealt with your first casualty, albeit it didn't survive, and unfortunately, um, did that prepare you more for the next one?
Yeah. So I didn't react emotionally after that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just reacted as I would like in training, straight to the job, do it and get it done. It's years later that affected me. I remember not long, I think it was a few days after that one, we had a mass casualty situation of about 30 women to children. And that was pretty intense. The babies,
Wow.
children, women, so civilians, obviously collateral,
Yeah.
unfortunately, they got caught up in a firefight and obviously they were dying, gunshot wounds. And at the time, because we got woken out of our beds, so I was still in shorts and t-shirts and flip-flops this whole time, our pajamas. But I was still, I didn't get have time to get changed, and it was one after the other, and we were running out of med kit. We had to get med kit flown in and dropped in from Bastion. We had to get a doctor flown in. We had heli coming in with Casevac in. It was just, I think it was about 6 hours we were going. We didn't have time to think because it was one
Yeah.
after the other. And you just like cannulating people's necks, strapping up, like bandaging and tourniqueting babies' arms, and just from gunshot wounds. And it was just insane. That day affected me much later on when I finally processed it, years later on.
Yeah.
And that
I
day
mean,
is
that
stuck with
that
me.
must have been rough. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine. That's like fucking hell. You see, like when we think, I'm guilty of it as well. I think, we think of guys out in like Iraq, Afghanistan, and places like that. And all the casualties, the medics were over there. They're helping us. We've got the fantastic teams that did, the recoveries and the Hex and the Chinooks, and I forget the proper name for them. It just went on my head. You forget that there's civilians getting injured and killed as well, and you're treating them. We forget. I'm guilty of forgetting about them. I think when I'm thinking of war zones, I'm thinking, right, the medics are out there and they're doing this, they're doing that, the doctors, and they're looking after the soldiers.
Soldiers.
You forget they're
Yeah.
looking after civilians, they're looking after the Taliban, they're treating them and stuff like that. You can't have
The
favourites.
Taliban spat in my face when I was
It's,
treating.
fucking
Yeah.
hell, I think I know what
He
I'd have
did,
done.
but he
Yes,
he
fucking,
blew his own. But because of what law is it we're under again?
The
I
Geneva
sound really
Convention.
dumb. That's the one. Sorry,
Yeah.
my mind goes.
Yeah.
People watching, that's PTSD. You get mind fog. You forget things, forget names. You can't find the words. Just that's a symptom people need to know. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, he blew his own hand up trying to make a bomb for us, and because of Geneva Convention, we had to treat him. And because I was female and in the army, he clearly didn't like that. I'm British as well. He was this
Yeah.
close to my face, and I was like cannulating his opposite arm, and he just like straight in my face. And my interpreter gave him a good telling off. But that's what you have. I know. I still continue to do the job because that's what we're there for. And at the end of the day, he's still human, and you
Yeah.
just respect other humans. I know you're in the war zone and whatever, but you're doing your job, and I will treat anybody as a medic anyway. If I see anyone injured, I will do my best. But it was quite a bit.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
was a
you
bit like
said,
shocking and disgusting. I just had this grown bloke spit in my face at 18 years old while I'm trying to treat him for his injuries. I just thought, that's so disrespectful. Like, on a serious note, it is though, isn't
yeah, but
it?
imagine if it was the other way around. They wouldn't have tracked you.
Hmm.
They wouldn't have. We're always better. We class ourselves as a better type of person. Will the enemy ever treat you? We have to treat everyone the same. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Not always they haven't, have they?
I wouldn't.
Mm.
No, they haven't. And I don't think they treat.
Trying to
I
be
don't think the
politically correct.
Taliban would have treated you at all. Yeah. They don't want to get cancelled. But no, I don't think the Taliban would have treated us if we were injured and they'd come across us. They'd probably just stuck another couple of rounds in you and get rid of you, type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
unfortunately.
that's a discussion for another time, I think. But and
Yeah.
now it's all over. Hopefully, it never happens again. But you never know.
Touch
We
wood.
took Afghan, got rid of the Taliban, and then we gave it back. Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? What a fucking waste that was.
That's a whole new
But
story, right? That's a whole podcast in
yeah,
itself. Because I know
yeah. I
many
mean,
of us after that were very, I know that triggered a lot of us.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I say, I never went there, and it made me angry. Just
Mm,
the the waste of
exactly.
human life on both sides and
On both
civilian.
sides, civilians,
Yeah,
Taliban, British Army, families have lost their parents on both sides, or children on both sides. And
yeah.
it's just our human
And it's just for
population
nothing.
felt all this pain for no reason at all. I mean, now I'm older, I've got a completely different mindset. I wouldn't go to war now, and I wouldn't fight
No.
another population. Maybe but I'm more spiritual and stuff now, and that's part of my healing journey. But I'm on a complete different path to. And I'm going to be honest, I never even really understood why we were in Afghan. That I didn't actually know why we were there. I was just doing what I was told to do, and that's a
Yeah.
bit naive because I was still so very young. I was naive to
I mean, the answer to that is because we got told to go. Really, it was the
exactly.
war on terror. But fucking hell, what's Afghan going to do to us? Type of thing. And that's the way a lot of us seen it. I mean, I I served in Bosnia twice, and the first time I went, I was raring to go there. And I seen that as a just thing that we went there to stop. The conflict there. As UN, we were quite ineffectual, but we changed from UN to like multinational brigade, where we took our
Yeah,
light blueberries off and put our dark blueberries on and started fighting back. Firing at guns, and it stopped the Serbs from shelling and killing and trying to genocide the Muslim population or the Bosnian population, which was majority Muslim. But I found that I couldn't wait to get there. I couldn't volunteer quick enough to go there because I thought that was just other wars that we've been to. Maybe he's
Hello,
not so
pretty cat.
just, but still proud that I went there. Yeah, she's
Same.
hello.
I'm still proud
Hey,
because the women and children that they did need us for the schools for them to have a life, and that's one of the reasons we were there because we did peacekeeping patrols for the women and children, which that is needed. That is needed. And I'm proud to serve there as well. Just I wouldn't do it again.
so what
I'm
was it
too
like
old.
for you? So yeah, no, I wouldn't do it again. I don't like the government. Yeah, I'd fight for the lads, but I wouldn't fight for this government or the last one either. Um, so what was it like after Afghan for you then? I mean, they've obviously touched on more stuff there that's affected you later on. But you
Mm,
served in like places like Kenya and that as well, didn't you?
I love Kenya. Yeah, we went to
Yeah,
Excise Sharp Point at Kenya doing giving medical aid. So basically, what I was doing in Afghan for the children, but less in a war zone. But it was for like, um, my mind. What is wrong with it today? Anti-malarials, and people would walk like days just to get paracetamol, and just the culture. They would teach us to dance, and we would go to the schools. It was just a whole different, from a war zone to that. It was like polar opposites almost,
yeah,
from still both poverty ridden countries, but to two completely different attitudes. And that's when I was in Kenya, that made me realize wealth doesn't bring you happiness. It's the people and the community you surround yourself by. And just, they were always so happy and they didn't have anything, but they were just so, I don't know, it's so infectious. And Kenya and Africa has now always been one of my favorite countries. And I've been back a few times to Africa since, on my own. Just because the experience I had there. And every time I go back there, I feel the same experience and the same joy from going at 19 years old to Kenya, and the joy, like, of seeing people. Some people were quite sick, obviously, lining up and they needed medical help, but give them mosquito nets, give them food, give them medical aid to vaccinations, knowing that they needed that and knowing it was going to make them better. And
yeah.
even if they did walk 2 days just for a paracetamol they didn't need, it was just like, just wow, wow. It's insane, isn't it? We complain that we can't get through to the doctors for half an hour and we're on hold, and these people walk in two
Yeah.
days. It puts things into perspective massively, and it's just eye-opening. And when they do the dancing and they sing it and they're doing their like chants, and it's, I don't know, it's just magical to me. Kenya, that was just magical. It was a nice
So what was after
experience.
Kenya for you then?
Canada. Oh, well, the prairie. So we went to the
I love
prairie.
Canada.
Yeah, that was all right. I was med cover, so it was no duff, a med cover, and then a bit of role play with the KRH. And when I first got out there, Prince Harry was out there, with the
Right.
fake laser things on the tanks or whatever. We call it
Yeah.
laser tag for those civilians out there. It's laser tag on tanks. But he was
It says
first out
X,
there
yeah.
when we got there, but I never got to see him. But yeah, Canada was good. Cold and then hot, snowy, and then. But could you navigate in Canada?
Yeah, I
I
had to
couldn't
quite a lot.
navigate the prairie. But
The thing
everything
I
looked the
found
same.
about this, as long as you knew where the circles were, you come across that road, have a 5 mile, 10 mile, 2 mile circle. Because you know why the circles were there? That used to be a nuclear test ground.
Did it?
So like, yeah. So as the roads, so there's circled roads all in Batters, and as they got smaller and
Yeah.
smaller and smaller, that was supposedly where Ground Zero was. But now they tested nuclear weapons there and didn't let us on it. So we're all
No
irradiated.
idea.
No, no, it was clean. No,
Maybe
that's what
that's why the weather's
uh,
messed up.
no, that's because it's Canada.
That's just Canada.
Yeah, but I loved Canada. I like the R&R better, but I did like Canada. And
I like
yeah,
the
down in
R&R.
down in on Meadow and all that.
Did you? I went to Edmonton. I
Yeah,
didn't do Medha. Yeah. The boys went to Medhat.
Yeah, I've been to Edmonton. It's got like it had at the time. This was like early 90s. It had the biggest shopping centre in the world there, the Edmonton Mall,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
and then we walked in there and we picked the wrong door to walk into because we never went to shops. We walked down this door. I went in the door, and it was just a corridor of pubs either side. We didn't get out of that part of the mall. And it was just like, oh, it's Sherlock Holmes. We're going in there. Right. So I missed the rest. Everyone
Yeah.
else was like, oh, it's brilliant. It's got the gin. It's got that. We're like, it's in the bar, mate. No, that was a
I
good
mean,
laugh.
what
I
soldier
liked
hasn't been? What soldier hasn't been to Edmonton and got a little
yeah,
tipsy way there?
it's the law, isn't it?
Yeah,
So after
exactly.
Canada, he moves on to.
So where did I go after that? I was back in the UK, and then I got posted to ATC Purbright. Um, I was with my son's dad at the time. We were both in Afghan together in
Mhm.
2007. He was Royal Anglian, um, and his PTSD had started to kick in. And I knew mine
Right.
was tivering a little bit in Canada. I kept getting a bit depressed suddenly in Canada, which was unlike me because I've always been a
Mm.
bubbly character, and suddenly I just kept getting a bit like down in the dumps, and I didn't really understand what was happening. And I got posted to ATC, well, promoted, done my card, I got posted to ATC Purbright, and then one day I tried to take my life, and I didn't really know
Right.
why. I was just depressed. So that's my first suicide attempt at 80 when I was posted there, and I went to the med center. Like, it didn't work, but I was late for work, and I turned up at like 11, 12 o'clock instead, before 7:30, ready for 8 o'clock sick parade to be the medic there for that. And I remember the practice manager having a go at me, like going mental at me. And I stood there, and you could see that I wasn't well from taking the tablets, but
Mm.
I clearly didn't know what I was doing. It was just paracetamol or whatever. And I stood there and I went, I tried to kill myself. Do you know what he did? He ag-eyed me. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I'll
Lots of
never forget
empathy.
who, I won't mention his name,
What?
but I'll never, ever
Uh,
forget that. And I remember from that day, I was like, I'm never going to be able to ask for help. And like that
mm.
stuck with me for a long time, that I got in trouble when I literally said, I tried to kill myself. Well, I'm stood here now, so it's fine. And that's basically the approach. We stood here, get to work, and you're ag-eyed as well. And and I got a 3-month warning order with that ag-eye. Yeah.
Fuck's sake.
And I was a good soldier, physically fit, 19, no, I was 20, sorry, just being promoted, like to Lance Jack, working in the gym with the guys as I was getting ready for my PTI call. I was a good soldier. So for me to suddenly do that, but yeah, anyway, I'll never forget that. So if people
I
reach
mean,
out to you for mental health, do listen.
you know, it's one of the hardest things to do is to reach out.
Mm.
It really is. And I've mentioned this in nearly every podcast I've done about how I asked for help. So I was going to the doctor for something else. So I'm diabetic, so I was going in for a blood test. And as I was getting the blood
Yeah.
test, I said to the young lass there, I said, "So what do you do about seeing someone about mental health? You know, if you think you've got a problem with mental health." And I think she was a bit taken aback. Wasn't expecting that
Mm.
question, bless her. And she just like looked at me and said, "Well, you've got to go and fill a form in online, on the clinic app." And I was just like, "Fucking what? You don't know how hard that was, me, just ask you that question, because it was." And she just like, it felt as though I was being fobbed off. I mean, I wasn't ag-eyed,
Yeah.
fucking hell, but it just felt as though I'd been fobbed off. And it, the only reason I think I filled the form in, I went home, and other things happened. and I was having massive, massive panic attacks and anxiety attacks, and I filled the form in while I was having them. So, and I was quite lucky. I got seen very quickly. I got seen very, very quickly. But in the army, we're all guilty of it. We
We
all
have to be
shied away
strong and
from
tough.
talking. Yeah, and you don't want to go, even if if somebody else had said or got diagnosed with any mental health problems, and I've seen it. We're all guilty of it. You fucking almost ostracize them, type of thing, when that's the last thing they need. But and people are guilty of it, not just in the military, but in all walks of life. That you don't know what to say. You don't know how to react. It's like when somebody says to you, I've been diagnosed with cancer. All of a sudden, like, fucking hell, you don't know what
Yeah,
to say to them. They don't need that. But I wouldn't say it's a natural reaction, but it probably is. You feel out of place. But I think within the army, with mental health ones, you don't want to be associated with that person, in case somebody thinks that you've got mental health
you're
problems, and it's
branded.
totally
Yeah.
wrong. Yeah, and it's totally wrong. No, but that's the way we were. We were like that. I hope it's not like that now. I left in 2012, and it was getting better, but it wasn't right. We were still like that then. It was.
Mm,
I've seen guys who had like bad injuries who come back from like Afghan and people like that, and they were kind of like they weren't looked after as well as I thought they should be. Unfortunately, they
it's
were kind of
sad.
like out of sight, out of mind, and forgot about almost. And I'm not saying that happened to everyone, but it happened to a good few.
Mm,
But with the mental health side, people would they'd panic, if that's a better word to put. They'd kind of like, so I don't want to be near them. Or denial. There was a lot of denial. So if somebody admitted they had mental health issues or asked to seek about it, there'd be denial. You'd be saying, "Oh, they're just skiving," or
yeah.
"There's nothing
I
wrong
think
with them."
that's what he
Fucking
thought.
man
He's
up.
just making an excuse up for being late. And because
Yeah,
it was out of my character, I'll quickly schmet, and it wasn't an excuse. But that's when me and his dad were going through troubles as well. And then he started to get abusive with his PTSD, and then I'm getting triggered, and then but our PTSD sort of was kicking in at the same time, like a few years later, which is weird.
yeah,
But we were both on the same tour, whereas he was a drinker, and I've never been a big drinker, so for me that wasn't the case. I'd always just throw myself into fitness or something, hence why I'd always be in the gym. Um, but he would take out on me, and years later we had my boy, who's now 13, so a very long time ago, but he was abusive. He was physically abusive. And the army put me in safe houses, and me and my son in safe houses and
wow.
things, which,
And do you think that was
yeah.
just down to his PTSD, or that he became
Um,
abusive with you?
yeah, because he changed. So we had known each
Yeah,
other since we were 16, and he changed after Afghan. 'Cause he had a bayonet. He was one Royal Anglian with the Ross Kemp guys.
yeah,
And I don't know if you heard about Chris Gray, but he died in Afghan on our tour as well. One of his good friends, one of our good friends, but his dad had to bayonet the Taliban and ditch, so that
Hmm.
messed with him. And then as soon as we had our boy, it it got worse. I think there was something inside of his brain was like, was that guy a dad? And he'd get the Black Death stare that you see the guys get when they go into their episodes, and he
yeah,
wasn't there. He wasn't there. I know he's much better now, but still not 100%. But yeah,
yeah. I don't think anybody ever will be.
no, and we never are.
It never goes away. It'll never go away. But
He'll-
you just got to learn to manage the triggers and help stop it. Fight back
yeah, we're not
against it.
really in
And
his
it's no,
we're not really in his
it's
lives
just
enough. We speak to him
um,
probably once, like he'll check in once a year on Brandon, and that's
yeah,
cool with me. But we're not in his life enough to know. But when we have spoken to him, he seemed cognitive and with it. And yeah,
that's a
I
shame.
don't
It's ended
pry.
that way.
Not, yeah. I've said it in
Yeah,
a podcast before. They were like, I say war. broke our family. Like,
Hmm.
that's what it did. It broke our family household because of PTSD. And unfortunately, I know many infantry soldiers, and not just infantry soldiers, but many soldiers that can become abusive. And I don't want to say too much, but I know enough that there should be some sort of intervention for soldiers, not just a bit of R&R or quickly go to Cyprus and then you've got a few weeks.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There needs to be more in, especially for those on the front line, for us on the front line. There needs to be, you get trained to be a soldier, right? And you get trained to kill and you get trained to do your trade, but you don't get trained to not think about aggression, or you don't get trained to think about civilian street or to have that life. And not every soldier is aggressive, because I don't want people getting that opinion,
No.
because we're not. We're all actually, pretty much 99% of soldiers actually want nothing but peace and love. But there is a temper with the PTSD where they black out and they don't know what they're doing. And it's happened too often.
Yeah.
Violence. And that happens in civilian street
You're
as
right.
well. It can happen
Yeah, I
everywhere.
mean, it's like, we focus on PTSD and mental health as for veterans, and because that's our experience, that's our shared experience, that's our background.
Mm.
I know for a fact that there's the building trade, the pub trade suffer just as much mental health issues.
Yeah,
Medics, the NHS, nurses, they got issues as well. Everyone's got issues, but there isn't enough help or acceptance. It's getting better, and people are talking about it more and more. And I talk about it a lot, like we have done today on this podcast, and on many other podcasts, we're talking about a lot. It's spoken about more. Before I started doing these podcasts, I didn't realize. You don't realize that a lot of people are suffering because it's
yeah.
the furthest thing away from your mind. You
Because
don't
with
look at
us,
someone
you
in the
wouldn't look
street and
at
think,
us.
"Are they all right?" Yeah, no. It's not. There's not a big neon sign pointing to your head saying, "fucked"
Yeah,
type of thing. When I went in to see the doctor, she was like, "So come on then, tell me what's going on," and I couldn't speak. The first thing I said to her was like, I left the army. I was in the army. When we leave the army, we're all fucked. And she just looked at me and went, "Yep, you all are." Because as much as the builders have got problems, that the nurses and other trades have got issues with mental health. We're a different breed. We are different people.
we've
We're the ones
been
who get trained to run towards danger. That's drummed into you. Like you said there, you train
we've
people to
been
go and
broke.
kill to do the job and stuff like that. You don't train to reverse that.
Yeah,
There's no switch to flick off. There's the morality switch. It sounds a bit
yeah. It's
wary.
like we're
Bit
aggressive, but
Alex
we're
saying
not.
we're all, yeah, saying we're trained killers. You know
But we
what I mean?
are.
That sounds like we're all got a knife in your mouth and fucking let me crawl up to people in the street.
But we are.
But
That we're all trained killers.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
reality.
but where's the switch? How would you reverse that? Most people can handle it. 99% of people, maybe it's not that much, but let's say 90% of the people who come out of the military can handle that. We're not crazy. We're not all mad. Even
Yeah.
people who've got PTSD aren't mad.
And
They've got
PTSD
mental
is
health
a
issues.
brain injury. It's brain damage. It
Yeah.
alters the brain. And the people that can't handle it, it's not because they want to kill. They're in so much pain and hurt from what they've seen, they don't know what to do. And
Hmm.
that's where people almost get that wrong as well. So, like the violence that I've had to deal with from his dad, even though I was getting beat up, like I'm getting the second hand PTSD whilst dealing with the first hand PTSD myself. but he's also in as much pain as I was, and all he's doing is kill, kill, kill. There's the enemy. He was seeing me as the enemy, and that's the sad truth of it, really. He's in pain, and
And you
many
can't
other soldiers
control it.
are in pain,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, you
that's what
can't
needs
control
to
it. It's
be.
like, yeah, be addressed.
And the
Yeah.
suicide,
But
suicide from men, it's mental health, Men's Mental Health Day the other day, wasn't it? And the
yeah,
suicide from men, especially because women, we cry, but we do shut down. But we cry, we let our emotions out. And again, it's going back to that male ego thing, isn't it? Back where I got shut down, and you can't talk in the military. And the men, they've got so much pain, they're lashing out at people, they're not getting the support, and you're losing families. Like, I've lost families and friends, although I don't retaliate aggressively. I shut down. So I've lost family and friends from that. But for men, that if they do deal with it the same, or if you drink, or if you go for a substance, you lose family and friends, and then you've got no one.
mm,
So you kill yourself. And the people aren't seeing a way out. You're seeing that as your only option, and there's no there is like up courage and stuff, but there needs to be more. And I know it is better, but it needs to be better, doesn't
yeah.
it?
I mean,
Like,
and there's lots of organisations out there that people don't know about, and that's one of
yes,
the things I'm trying to do on here is to find some of them, local to me, whatever, and highlight where they are or highlight them. Like Walking with the Wounded, the Eastern Veterans Trust. One I'm trying to get in touch with at the moment deals with housing for the homeless. They've got houses that are like shared accommodation, and they can get them in called the Veterans Launch Pad,
cool.
and stuff like this. There
Yeah,
is them there, but the it's it's I didn't know these things existed because I didn't need to know at the time. Whereas if one person can pass on that information to somebody else, and that goes down the chain, and that person who needs that help can find it, all well and good. But I think we've jumped ahead really too far. So we've still got you in the army at the moment. You're at Purbright.
still in the
So
army.
what happened after Purbright for you then? Yeah.
I'll say into the safe houses, and then from the safe houses,
Yeah.
I got posted to Wimbish with the bomb disposal unit. And there I became acting practice manager. That was quite cool. And then I got posted to Brunei, Malaysia, which was with the Gurkhas. Yeah,
Wow.
in the jungle.
What was
The
that like?
special forces were doing jungle team, so I would do some med cover in the jungle. That was really interesting. And my son got to learn, he went to like an all Nepalese school with the Gurkha children, and he was like, it was him and Lola, I think her name was. They were the only English children in the Nepalese school, and he would be like, Namaste. And I love the Gurkha regiment, so much respect for that regiment. They're so hardworking, so intelligent, and so
Mm.
kind, and I wouldn't fight them. They're not afraid of snakes or anything. They're just amazing, brilliant regiment to work with. 100%. The jungle is pretty creepy at times, but yeah.
It's fucking horrible. The jungle's horrible. I've only experienced it like in the Caribbean when we went on there and exercise. Really done like some jungle training then. It
Mm.
fucking stinks. It's horrible. You're not allowed to wash, not allowed to shave, and I mean, I haven't shaved today, but
Oh
it's a
God.
bizarre place to be. Yeah, it's a bizarre place to be, like the jungle, I must admit. So how long were you there for in Brunei?
wasn't it wasn't that long. It was like 7 months. But because it was so soon after, like, in the safe houses where I had a second suicide attempt, um, I took a whole pack of sleeping tablets. So that's like before then. And I still wasn't getting, because I didn't ask for help. I just had,
Hmm.
except for in the safe house, I still wasn't getting any counselling. at this point. So I was still being sent across the country, you know. So then I was in Malaysia, Brunei, and it was just me and my son, and I cracked, basically. I was Kazi back for mental health. I was really I started having sleep paralysis and severe like high anxiety. It wasn't just depression and suicidal thoughts. I was almost like losing my mind, and they put me on diazepam while I was out there. And the medical doctor said, the doctor in Brunei, the military medical doctor, he sat me down. He said, like, I think it's time we talk. And he listened to me. He was like properly listened to me. And that
Yeah.
was the first time I was able to speak about it. And that was in 2014. And yeah, I basically got Kazi back to the UK for mental health, which is a shame because I really, at the same time, enjoyed that posting, but at the same time, there were triggers around me.
Yeah.
Brunei was a Muslim country, so there was a lot of similarities. I think that is what happened there, but also I was still very much in a being ignored. Like I was still very depressed and masking it for a long time, even with
Yeah.
suicide attempts. So just getting ignored and posted, and she's fine because I'm back to my normal bubbly self. The
Yeah.
mask
I mean,
comes back on.
there is that the mask, exactly that, exactly what you just said. The mask is you don't show people. Nobody would know unless they knew you, unless you told them. Like I said about it, before we did this, that I've learned things about people who I've known for years, and
Mm.
I didn't know if they'd suffered, some horrific things had happened to them in their childhood, or actually while they were serving, and they'd felt this way and they'd felt that way because you just see, you having a beer with them, you don't see it. It's that mask that everyone's really good at covering themselves up, and even if that's subconscious, you
Yeah,
still do it. So when
can't
you
help it.
did, once they now knew that you had issues, how did they treat you then? How did they start giving you treatment, or were they in a rush to get you gone, to get you out of the army?
They put they put me in the PRU unit. Um, so
Yeah,
I was then technically under them. But I mean, I'd gone through a lot by this point, like sexually abused, Afghan,
yeah,
domestic abuse, parents that don't care, like no parents, no parental support whatsoever, domestic abuse, then losing the love of my life to PTSD and domestic abuse, safe houses, a single mum. Like, that's a lot to think about, isn't it? In a lifetime.
yeah,
And I was just like, no wonder I feel like the way I do. And I wanted a 22-year army career, but they put me in counselling. We spoke earlier about the EMDR. They tried that, but I wasn't ready. And I wasn't in a space. And basically, I was getting counselling and someone to talk to. I weren't ready to talk. And this is a problem. I would go into my counselling sessions. Hi, how are you?
yeah.
Back to the mask. And they would try and they'd be like, for God's sake, Amber. And I just couldn't, I weren't ready. As we spoke about earlier, you have to be ready and willing to open up. I wasn't in that. I couldn't because
Yeah,
I was just being
yeah,
shut down and shut down. The only person listened was a doctor where I like said, this is really how I'm feeling. This is what I've been through. But then in counselling, when they wanted to nitpick, I'd still be like, I'm good. Like hiding it. And it's just,
yeah.
it was so hard. And even to this day, if I'm down or feeling low, I'll shut down. I will shut down and I won't tell anyone. And if someone comes to speak to me, I'll be like, hi. And I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I do it. But I will know I'm no longer ever wanting to commit suicide again.
Right.
I might tibble on
So
the thoughts.
yeah. So do you feel as though the military give you enough help or not?
No. They didn't give me the tools either to deal with it. I d I didn't I don't think I got enough help, no. I think I was
No.
almost ignored in certain it was
Yeah.
just, "It's not happening. She'll be fine. Let's post her. Let's get her a cool posting to Malaysia."
Like what I was saying earlier about when someone gets diagnosed with in the military, we tend to put them in a box. As much as you put your own problems in a box, you try to, you know, it's not right, but it happens, and
Yeah,
we were all guilty. I've seen it so many times. You know, you don't, and at the time, I didn't even appreciate it that that was happening. I realized that that was happening, but it did. You know, I've lost friends since they've left the military who were getting help. You know, but we're asking for more. They weren't getting enough help. You know, one of the guys he he was on the phone to them that morning, you know,
mm.
saying, "Look, if you need to help me. If you don't help me, I'm not going to be here. I won't make this
I've
day."
had that in the doctors
And
myself, yeah.
yeah, and basically they didn't get, you know, what it got left on an answer phone, or nobody, you know, nobody picked it up, or nobody took him seriously. And you know, his family found him later on in the day. You know, he hung himself, and you know, it's shit. You know that we can sit here and we can say there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough, right? But I don't have the answer to fix it all. I don't think we ever will be able to.
No, I don't.
You know, we can
I
just
think
try
the
and
only answer
yeah,
is when someone says, "You need to watch your friends, you need to listen."
yeah,
And we need, the problem is today's society, because of technology and everything, we're now recluses. So we haven't got a community like we used to have. And that is a bigger issue. And a lot of reasons why our soldiers are feeling suicidal. Yeah, it is PTSD as well, but especially when we turn into veterans, I believe once we are medically discharged or out of the army, we lose our purpose. And then because we've got PTSD on top of that, we lose our friends and family. Now, what purpose have we got to fight for? Why are we fighting for? Why are we fighting for ourselves? We don't
yeah,
have a purpose. So, for someone you see that's struggling, the best thing you can do for them is give them a purpose, give them a reason to fight every day, give them a reason to stand up and help another, give them a reason to be alive. And I think that's
yeah,
the biggest thing. And then that's the start of someone's healing journey. At least it is for me and what I've witnessed from others anyway. That's what I can say. A sense of purpose saved me. Even though I had my son, I still attempted
yeah.
twice after having him and still begged for help at doctors only 2 years ago. So, like, your friend got
Wow.
rejected, and I had to get op
Yeah,
courage involved because I knew I was going to do it. I was in that mindset. I knew. And I don't know if it would come back again because that had been a long time between the last one. There had been years in between before I even thought about it
yeah.
again. I don't know when it's going to hit again, and that same as everyone
It's
else.
just
But the
it's a weird one,
purpose,
that isn't it? Because yeah, it's that time. I've I don't know, I wouldn't call it a study, but you know, it's between like 5 and 12 years. Any time in between that, people normally find once they leave the military, and everything starts hitting them after between 5 and 12 years. After for me, it was 12 years. That's when it hit me.
mm,
And speaking to the counsellor and stuff like that, it's quite common. It's quite common that you think you're fine. You know, it doesn't nothing, but it just takes another trigger to open that box. You know, mine was all little boxes, and they all just got full up. And then that last thing that happened, then it fucking blew them all open, and everything came out,
and
and it was
and
just shit.
PTSD, because it's feelings and emotions. that trigger a PTSD. It could be a relationship breakdown that triggers the PTSD, that takes you back to an emotion in a war zone. And people don't realize it could be one word a partner says that can take you back to the war, because we're extra sensitive. And any emotion, if
Yeah.
it's even relatively the same feeling or emotion that we had in the war zone, we're back there. And it's nothing to do
Your
with war.
it's amazing. Your mind's
Yeah.
amazing the way it does stuff like that. It's crazy. I mean, you have like I've experienced it quite recently. the so much shit happens, and you've got a learned. I wouldn't say it's a
Yeah.
learned response. I think that's the wrong word. I don't know if it's the right word. Like a learned response where your body and your mind remembers something or the pain or whatever, and it just
Hmm.
suddenly goes back there. I was driving home tonight, and I mean, I told you what happened the other day. I don't really want to go into it now, but because it had happened previously as well, and I'd gone through all the bad stuff there. As I was driving home today, it just went bang, and I was just like, "Fuck!" And it just
Back into that
everything
space.
came back. Yeah,
Mm.
but
How weird is
my
that?
coping mechanism. Sorry,
How weird is that
how
though? Like,
weird is it? Yeah, yeah, it's mad. I was literally, I don't want to feel like this again because I know what happened last time. But I'll look in the rearview mirror and shout at myself. So anyone was driving past me, what the fuck's he doing? I'm going, in the mirror. And I was just like, that helps me.
I'm
That's
some of
part of
my
my.
stuff.
Yeah. I was like, I'm just going mental at myself. And
Embarrassed.
doing stuff like this is good.
Mm.
Yeah. So
This
what?
is your
So what was
sense
it
of
like for you actually
purpose.
when you?
This is your sense of
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah. I never thought of it that way, to be honest. Thank you, Doctor Amber.
See, I've been doing it for
the
years since I
the,
was a kid.
bloody hell. So what was it like
Mm.
actually leaving the military then? I mean, did they? So you got MD, didn't you?
Horrible. Yeah, medically discharged. And I
Yeah,
had nowhere to
and it
go.
was just
I was,
fucking go. Yeah,
yeah. Well, you do, what's that week you do again? You do that week where you prep yourself for Civvy Street.
yeah.
Um,
Career
uh,
transition workshop shit.
that's the one. But
Yeah,
I just remember that time I was on diazepam, antidepressants, suicidal. Like I can remember any of that week. Seriously, what preparation is that? And how do they think that any soldier in that state of mind is going to remember that week? Whilst on
yeah.
diazepam and antidepressants and suicidal. And then you got a discharge date, and all you had was that 1 week. Ready to write a CV. That's all I remember. I know there was a lot more, but because I wasn't there in my head, I might be present in the classroom, but I weren't there. So I had no idea I didn't know how to take a bin out when I got out. But anyway, I digress. I was homeless when,
No, the amount of people who've told me that. I mean, I knew one lad when he got out, he didn't realise that he renew his car insurance because he was that naive and he didn't know about the world. You know what I mean? I mean, that's quite an extreme thing, I
council
suppose,
tax.
because yeah, because it was like they took out your wages and stuff like that. Pay for this, pay for gas, pay for water. What the fuck, pay for water for? It should be free. But
Well, the
stuff
only
like
thing I
that.
knew
But you
about,
said then you left.
the only
Sorry.
thing I knew about was a TV license, because we would always get inspections with that, wouldn't we?
So you say that when you left, you were homeless. I mean, like
Yeah.
badly. I mean, I'd say badly. I mean, yeah. So what was that? What happened there then?
Well, so I got my payout, which was 30K for PTSD, not a lot, right?
Hmm.
For life, for CPTSD, lifelong injuries, and 2 lower knee injuries as well. So that I paid for hotels, put all any belongings I had in storage, and I had a finance car. And basically, I would that was how I was living until I ran out of money, because I didn't even know about universal credit or anything. So I was getting no benefits, nothing, like no support. I would go and sleep on my brother's sofa, and he would take us in some nights, so we weren't going from different hotels. And I wouldn't stay in a hotel like more than 2 nights, because I would try and go in different ones, because I was like, my ego was bad. And I was going to the council, they wouldn't help me. And I was like, but am I not a priority? Because I'm actually classed as having a disability. I have a disability. I have PTSD as a disability. And I'm a single parent. No, no. I was getting fobbed off. And I ran out of money, like pretty quickly, paying for hotels and things and for the storage. And in fact, for a couple of years, I didn't even pay my storage. And the guys held it for me, and I paid them back 2 years later. Which, yeah,
Oh,
which
that
is,
was good of
I was
them.
just
Yeah.
very lucky that he did that for me.
Yeah.
Grateful, and he never got rid of my stuff or anything. I just stayed in communication with him, luckily. And yeah, I just had basically had a debt that I had to pay later, which I suppose that happens when you're homeless, right? But I lost my car because I couldn't pay the finance
Right.
anymore. So the only thing that I had left with me, my child, who was like 4 or 5 years old at the time, homeless with him. This car was like my only to get about to different places. I kept missing payments, and eventually they were like kept ringing me, and they were like, we're gonna have to come and get it, and so I had to leave it somewhere. And I had like all my bags I did have in there with me. Like, it was horrible. And then we ended up in hostels, and this hostel were like, in the military it's completely drug free, isn't it? No drugs, it's not
Yeah.
tolerated. And then in this hostel there was people doing lots of different drugs. And actually, I was really quite scared, because you don't know how people are going to react on drugs. I'm quite a short female. Like, if a couple of men were to attack me, it might be a soldier, but I've got my
Yeah.
child there, and I'm small. I'm not going to be able to fight these people. And I was worried. I was really, really worried. And and it was dirty. It was filthy. It was just, yeah, it was all, I didn't feel safe at all. It's not like you're inside the barracks with a bunch of soldiers, a bunch of men. You're with strangers. You don't know who they are. You don't know their background, especially from what I've grown up with when I was younger. It was horrible. And I reached out.
I
I
can
was so
imagine.
desperate. The council just kept rejecting me. And I reached out, like, to help the homeless veterans. I found them on Google, and it was like the middle of the night. I was on like food stamps as well. I had to go and collect food, like cans of food. Like, I had nothing because I had no universal credits or nothing. So I'm eating out of tins that I'm like, that was, I can tell you something, that was really, lost all my pride. That
Yeah.
that 11 years I've just served, and that pride of my service, that meant nothing at that moment. I lost it all. I couldn't even afford my own food to feed me and my son. I had to go and beg for food, basically, like with these vouchers to get a bag of food. And I was just like, wow, this is how they treat veterans. And the council didn't care. It was just, it was shameful. It was so
Yeah.
embarrassing and scary. And I'd lost everything. My career, my mental health was in tatters still. I lost my car. I lost any of my belongings because they were in storage. It was just like I had nothing, not even like a penny to my name. It was ridiculous. But so I help for homeless veterans. I was like Google searching like veteran charities to help homeless veterans, and I found this charity. And in the middle of the night, I'm sending them an email, like the most beggy email you would think of. Please
Mm.
help me. I don't know what to do. I'm so stuck. I'm stranded. Please, please help me. A single woman told my whole situation, and like really opened up on this email. The next day they contacted me, and the day after that they come and picked me and Brandon, my son, up and put us in temporary accommodation up north, because they didn't have none in Lowestoft, Suffolk. And that's the thing, I was in Lowestoft, Suffolk, where my family were, with my mum and my nan and granddad. And the only person that would even let us come and stay every now and then, so we weren't in hostels, was my twin brother. So, and that
Fucking
brought
hell.
me back to when I was 16, why I joined the army, where I had no support.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm here again. I'm back to being a child with no. So I was like, I was back there again. Like nothing's changed. My mum wouldn't even let me in for a coffee. She wouldn't even let me inside to have a coffee. But that's a whole new level. My mum is a whole. I don't speak to my mother anymore because she tried to rob from me
Funny
when I
that.
was in Afghan. Yeah, she's done a lot. She got booked.
Hell.
Yeah, she frauded my name when I was in Afghan. She was gutted that I never died. That's a whole nother story. Yeah, because she wanted the life insurance when I was. Yeah, that's a long story, that one. But you can see why I wanted to get away, right? And I've never said this on a podcast or anything before. I've never spoke about it before because I wasn't ready before. But now I'm like, "No, I don't care." But I reached out to them. They took us. I'm over it now. They took us up north, and they helped me get universal credit. They helped me get a counsellor. They bought all furniture in this, like, it was only a one-bed bungalow, but that's all they had available, and that was a safe space away from any druggies. They honestly, they were amazing, and well, I work for them now. But yeah, I
I
like
mean, wow.
yeah, they changed my life because I don't know if I
They
didn't
saved your
reach out
life.
to them.
They saved your life.
I call them earth angels. They were my angels that saved me. Yeah. If I
You
didn't reach
know,
out to them
that's
and they
quite a,
didn't get back to me, it's insane.
that's a
Uh,
powerful summary, Amber. That really is. It's like I'm blown away with it, really, to be honest. I'm quite. It's not often I can say this, but I'm speechless. Normally I can talk the iron legs off a donkey, but I just don't know. I haven't got an answer to anything you just said there.
Sorry.
You know what I mean? It's like I can't. I can't come back with
I've
anything,
been
you know.
through a lot.
But what?
I've-
Yeah,
but the
fucking just
last,
a bit.
since Help for Homeless Veterans saved our lives, my life has
Yeah,
changed. Like for the better,
yeah,
completely. I've been on a different journey, and everything that happened in my past, I don't hate anyone, I don't anything. It's led me to where I am today. And if none of that
yeah.
happened, any of that happened, I wouldn't be where I am today. If that makes sense?
It makes
Does it
perfect
make
sense, and a lot
sense?
of people have said it's like I wouldn't call it fate because I'm not whether I believe in fate or not, but to have you've got to have a life to appreciate what you've got, and
Yeah.
you've been to rock bottom. So my dad always used to say to me, "Always expect the worst, and you're never disappointed." Well, you've had the worst, so everything's got to be better. If that makes sense, um,
Exactly.
or is that
But that
simplifying it?
fear, the fear, like,
Yeah,
you know, that feeling, the PTSD, that emotion, like with you, your recent thing of going back to that same experience,
Hmm.
I have that fear, and I've got a wall for relationships. Like I'm single and I've been single for years because I am so scared of getting close to people that I'm gonna cry now, and I don't normally cry, but I'm so scared of getting close to people. Don't do it. Ah. Because of that feeling,
I'm
what you
laughing
were
at it.
talking
Stop
about.
crying, laughing. Don't cry.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Because that feeling of going back to that same place, I
Yeah,
know I cannot handle another I can't handle any more pain because I know where
yeah.
that will send me. And I know the next time it does, that will be it. Because I know I can't. I can't ever do it again. So my only option, my only choice is to have faith and hope and to keep pushing forward. Because if I don't, But
You'll be
damn
fine.
them.
I know. I mean, it's that people just go, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be all right." You know your own
Yeah,
mind, and you know how
I
to protect
know
yourself.
I can't.
Um,
I know I physically can't take any more pain, like mental. I can't take it, and then that's why
yeah,
I'm like I isolate a lot, and the only time I
yeah,
do speak to people, I'm working or podcasts,
yeah,
or I'm a very isolated person now, and people
yeah,
don't get it. And I do have the only except for the charity, like I speak to them every day, but that's different. They saved my life. I know
yeah,
they never hurt. They've always got my best interest at heart. And recently, you seen I've been to Texas, um, done
yeah,
some filming with
yeah,
done some filming with them. They're apart from the military family, those guys in Texas are literally like the family that I should have been born into. They they make me feel wholeheartedly at home and safe, and I've never had
yeah.
that before. And they're in another country, damn it. But I
Move.
relationship wise, I'm so scared. And if I have gone on dates, the minute someone's thrown a red flag, or if they've even like begin to ghost me, like or they're gone quiet for 24 hours, I won't speak to them again anymore. I'm like, okay, bye. I've got a block.
That's a bit harsh.
There's no second chances with anyone. But it's because I have to protect myself now. I've got
Yeah.
boundaries now, and I've had to put them in place because being a people pleaser has caused my own suffering. And I've learned
Mm.
a lot. I've learned a lot. And without boundaries, people will
So what
not
was
respect you.
your so what was your like therapeutic journey afterwards? Like what? So you've got a job with them now. You don't you're all of a sudden you weren't homeless anymore. Things were looking up. I mean, did you then seek more help, or did they thrust it on you, type of thing?
So I had counselling with them for a bit. Um,
Mhm.
Again, I still wasn't really ready. I don't think counselling was my route, I'm going to be honest. It was when
Right.
I decided to start. I'm a natural giver. I think you are as well. You're a natural giver. And that's
Mm.
where I thrive, and that's where I find purpose. And I think, hence being the medic as well, naturally, I want to help people. And so, soon as I was able to, I will admit, for the first year of being with them, I was there was a lot of tears coming from me, a lot of healing, a lot of processing the discharge of the military and what am I going to do with my life? There was a lot of that for the
Yeah.
first year and a half. Even for a little while, about probably until a couple of years ago, I was still like, what am I doing with my life? But I started off by giving back to them. I started doing fundraisers, started supporting them, and I felt like I was in debt to them almost. And I wanted to
Yeah.
give back. I felt like I owed them something for saving me because I've never had anyone like my own mum wouldn't even let me in for a cup of tea or a coffee, My mum wouldn't even let me in for a drink. And these people have just took me and my son and saved us. I mean, like, who does that? Who is that nice? Surely there's a reason for this or so. So I felt like I had to, you know what I mean? I owed them a
Yeah.
debt, and I still say to
Yeah.
this day, I am forever in their debt. And they always say, "You're going to leave." I'm like, "No, I can't leave. You saved me."
You're
So
getting
I
rid of
started giving back.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, you're stuck with me now.
So I mean, yeah. I mean, how do you do that? How do you? I mean, I say how do you, and I mean this, that, and the other. Um, I know you do poetry, and you've written books as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's part of my healing journey.
Yeah.
So in that first year and a half, um, and I was never a writer. I was never good at English or anything actually, because at school I was just pretty rubbish. But I decided to write my life story in a book to get it out, and I was like, just gonna spit it out there, throw it up on a piece of paper, and see what happens. The first book was a disgrace. Some people actually bought it and read it on Amazon when I self-published. But when I look back, like about 3 years ago, I looked back and read it and was like, there's spelling issues like it's terrible. It's jumbled in one, like my brain is in general, just throwing things here and there. It was no order to it. It wasn't a very good book. But that's when I was like, I need to refix this book. And then during COVID, I went and done my GCSEs again, and learned to do English properly and done a bit more. And I was always good at writing creative stories, just not very good at spelling and grammar. So I went and done my GCSEs and like tried to learn a bit more what I missed out on in school because I was too busy being traumatized
Yeah.
in school and in survival mode that I had to go and relearn in the adult life. So if people in teachers who are watching this, if your children are not focused, just, give them some grace. Something might be happening. Or they've got ADHD, or they're just not being challenged enough and you need to give them a harder challenge. But yeah, so anyway, that I went back and then I've started creative writing and poetry. I found really helped express myself without a way that's exposing everything in one go,
Yeah.
because I can go into slight more detail, but in a more creative way. Because I'm good at painting. Like, really enjoy painting. I mean, I do fitness as well, but creativity, I feel like you can express yourself in a way that's less exposing, in a way that's more
Less
fun.
intrusive.
Yeah, that's the right word. A way that's more fun, in a way that it's your feelings on a bit of paper, and you've got to think about it in a different way whilst creating. You're not thinking about it like, oh well, I was homeless, blah blah blah. Now I'm going to think about it in a poem. I've now got to think about the emotions that I was feeling. I've got to think
Mm.
about the scenery because I'm being creative with it now. I'm actually picturing a scene. I'm not just telling you I was homeless once. I've now got to be creative. So I think you actually taking more out of your brain, and there's some healing in actually telling more truths, but in a less abrasive way. And
Yeah.
it's not just as blunt as, oh, I'm homeless, because that's not healing, is it? I was homeless once.
No.
Oh, was that it? Well, how did you feel? What happened? That's how you heal. It's therapy in your own way, in a healing way. Same with
Yeah. So
art as well.
so for me, talking was my expression. I've got no imagination whatsoever.
I
Hence,
bet you do. I'm going to get a poem
but
out of you one day.
there was a young no. The it's interesting to me that you've used that medium to express how you feel, and that the way you can still hold back and not let people in too far. Like you said about your dating, you're going to meet someone, and you'll wholeheartedly end up trusting them. That's called love
One day.
type of thing. But it'll happen one day.
And
And
you.
if it doesn't, it doesn't. Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
yeah.
I'm quite
I'm too
content.
old now. Yeah. The,
I like my own
the,
space.
yeah. There is that as well. So your creativity allows you to. It's a pressure valve. I'm just surmising. I'm just guessing. So your creativity for your poems and your artwork. By the way, I love the elephant with the sax. I think that's cool. I was saying that today.
Thank
Um,
you.
the so that's like a pressure release valve almost. So you can, if you start feeling as though it's building up again, you can go off and you used imagining this and imagining that, and you're pushing it out, and it's on the paper, and it's
Yeah.
not in here, it's not rattling around. It's not going to hurt you anymore. So you can use that to push it out, type of thing. Is that kind of the way your creativity works, or am I talking bollocks?
Yeah. Sometimes it depends what state I'm in. Now, if I'm in a deep PTSD depressive state, I'll shut
Hmm.
down and I'll either go in fight or flight mode. But if I'm like at the
Yeah,
edge of just coming out of that, where I'm still quite emotional, but now I'm not quite in flight mode. I I can then start to use my emotions. I mean, not sometimes I won't always write it straight away. Sometimes I'll get to like spring clean in the house or OCD kicks in. Other things might kick in. I've got to go for a run and get the immediate anxiety off my chest. But a lot of the time, it's sort of an immediate painting does. Painting calms me. So I'll just paint random stuff. Um, because then I sometimes get hyper focused on stuff. I swear I must be autistic or
yeah.
something, but I like hyper focused on stuff. So it's like
I think we're all on that spectrum somewhere. We're all on that one
we
somewhere.
all are. I believe that actually. I believe everyone's on the spectrum. So whoever says they're not, I reckon you are. You might not be. You might be completely not. But the same with the poetry. It just really, really helps get it out. But not only that, the way I've used the poetry, where I've had my voice so many times, I feel now, like there's some parts of my story I might be a bit bored of, but that is my story. But
Yeah,
I feel like I'm in a place now where I've said my story, that I now want to be able to give others a voice. The ones that are silent, I want to
yeah,
encourage them. I'm in a place now of encouraging others to use their voice to heal them in multiple ways. Hence the last book I've just got out, the War's Truth book, which also fundraise for our charity. So it's like a double whammy, but there's like 100 soldiers and veterans, children's, and some wives have written their story in poetry about their time in service as a pad's wife, as a child, and their parent as there's like ones about Afghanistan at Christmas and just like so many different ones. And loads of these guys come back to me with multiple poems, which I'm not doing with. Maybe I've probably got enough to do another book with all, but I know that I've helped them with some
yeah.
expression, and that's going to do a ripple effect. And they're going to help someone else, and they're going to help someone else. And it might not be therapy, it might not be immediate mental health crisis, but I know I've certainly helped save some people on that side from communicating, which isn't just the charity stuff. It's sort of separate because it's the charities that help the
Yeah.
homeless. This is now going to mental health, and so I do that on the side as well. I get loads of veterans approach me and for help.
So
Um,
I had it explained to me, or not had it explained to me. Somebody said it a different way. So imagine circles in the pond, like you said, the ripple effect there. But you also want it to hit other. So somebody's dropped a pebble over there, and that ripple's coming this way, and you need them to cross over, and
yeah,
you can help more and more people. So somebody who can't express themselves through poetry might not think of doing it, and then you've helped somebody, that ripple's gone that way, and they've pushed it out to them, and then it might give them the gist or the idea of, oh, I mean, there's therapy, there's therapy through writing down. I've spoken to quite a few people who that's helped them. There's therapy through talking, which is what helped me. um the biggest one that everyone's mentioned to me, whoever I've spoke to, stuff at it, is fitness. I'm not going that route because I'm a lazy fat old bastard.
5 times a
But
week I train.
it,
Yeah,
yeah, and that's your escape. The endorphins that you're getting from that is holding back many demons. And it's one of the best things that can happen. Even just going for a walk. But what about with the ripples? If that if the ripple from this pond can get over into another pond and hit that ripple, and then their message comes back to you, and this, that, and the other, and spreads about, and it can be a powerful thing. It can get out there and
And
speak to
those
lots and lots
reading
of
it,
people.
and those reading it, the
Yeah,
ones that can't create, the ones reading it can relate to it. And then you're healing there.
yeah,
And I've got soldiers from America that have written in it. So it's I haven't just hit the English side, I've got American and English. So we fought together. Why not heal together? There's
yeah,
like, and I've got
yeah. I've never thought of it that
I've
way.
just
That's a lovely way of playing it.
yeah, too right. We
It really
should,
is.
and we
Yeah.
should do it as a worldwide. We should be healing. My whole life is therapy now. Everything I do is therapy. It's basically just like,
So
oh,
that,
therapy, therapy.
so that's the future for you then. Is that where you see just everything being now? So staying working where you are now, and because you sound as though you're in a great place. All right, you've admitted that you still have some demons
Still
now and again, but you
demons.
sound as though you can really handle it now. You can still. You sound as though you've got them under control.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting as well because so what I
Yeah,
was just in Texas, was I in film I was filming. We filmed in well, I've been in one documentary already about PTSD. That's been released last year or whatever. That's already been done. So I'm in the dabbling in the film world. I had my first red carpet event last week in Texas.
wow,
Yeah. So we
wow.
got
What was that like?
that was awesome. And I'm in a cinematic movie, like in the movies. It was a red carpet movie premiere for a movie we filmed in Ireland, and it's called Operation Rock the Troops. That's the guys in Texas. And his name's Matthew JC. I'm gonna have to link you up with him. You should
Yeah,
do a podcast with him. So I'm the first English veteran that he's had on his show called The Highway Home. And what they do, so again, it's like my poetry book, but they do it through music. So they got us to write a song in Ireland, perform it in Ireland, whilst this is all on camera telling our story. And then last year we went to Texas, and so we're with professional musicians from Texas, so celebrities there, and we're writing songs with them.
yeah.
We then went done I don't know, I've just suddenly jumped into this world, is insane. Thank you,
Wow.
Lord, like universe, what the hell? Don't know where it happens. Law of attraction, that works. And we done a musician tour bus last year from Texas to Nashville. Like with all this is
Yeah.
filmed as well. So this whole movie is a Ireland, this tour bus. Then we're in Nashville, performing in Nashville. That's where Dolly Parton performed. Like, I'm performing in Nashville 2 years ago. I was never even thought about being a musician or having a song. And then we're recording our songs in like Sienna Studio, and I believe like Taylor Swift has recorded songs, and like big names have recorded songs in this
Mm.
studio that I'm recording in, and I'm in a recording booth, like singing on stages and stuff. And it's like I've got two
What's
songs
going
now.
on?
I don't even know where it's come from, and I've just like so. And then whilst we were in Texas, I was filming my music video, and the other veterans. But
Wow.
then and the only reason I feel like I was saying how close I feel with them is because we had to be so open with them for the song lyrics,
Hmm.
because the song lyrics are our stories. And my song's called My Story's Not Over. The suicide and the and that's one of my songs, so My Story's Not Over. And it's like we've all got different songs, all for veterans with these amazing musicians, but we had to be so vulnerable and creative. And I've got a poem in my
Hmm.
song which I wrote as well, like, so I've written this song, performed this song, and it's like it intertwines with what I was already doing, kind of thing. It's weird, isn't it, how the world works?
It's fucking mad. It's mad.
I know, and
You
I'm
know,
walking out
I
this
never knew that.
theater. I'm like this
You
like
know,
little
I
mini
mean,
celebrity in Texas. Had no idea.
it's like, you know what I said before this? I don't really like, yeah, I don't really look up people too much before I do the podcast because I like to hear the story as well. You know, I'm here, I'm just going, what?
So am I.
It's,
I didn't even know
it's
what's happened.
amazing.
I was at my first ever red carpet event and movie premiere. I still can't believe it. I've like
That's
honestly, I've been on
amazing.
radio shows. I've like so for the last 2 years, I've been on radio shows, constantly podcasts. This would be now the second film that I've been in. I'm like I've got contacts. I was working with this film guy, but he was a bit of a fraud, and he took advantage of me with my mental health. So I cut him off.
Right.
But I did meet some contacts with him, and through him, we're now me and these producers and directors now we're now screenwriting and doing some stuff on some other stuff. So I don't just do the charities work. I'm like I
Yeah.
dabble in that side as well. So I'm not just an author
I wouldn't
or a
say
painter.
dabbling. It sounds like you've thrown yourself right into it. Fucking hell. You'll
I
be on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me
did.
Out of Here next.
That's on my law. That's on my vision board. That is. So anyone who wants to like, this is my. I believe vision boards, law of attraction, and gratitude works. I do. I truly do. Like, I'm still in shock about last week, and I'm gutted to be back in England, but it's cold. give, give me back next vision board. Another red carpet event. BAFTA. I'm going for it. #1 hit song.
Why not? Hey,
Platinum.
you never know. You never know. You never
Best
know.
actress.
So
And
yeah, it's
we don't
amazing what
know
you've got up
what's
to, what you've
next.
done, and how you recovered. Yeah,
But you know where
but
it
it's
all
amazing
came
where you
from?
are now.
It's all from the
Go on.
charity. The first documentary that started, someone reached out to the charity and said, "Have you got a female veteran that you've supported that we would like to have her on our show?" And that was the first documentary that happened through the charity again. I mean, and then Veterans Foundation filmed me, and that's like had like 6-7 million views or whatever. And through that, that is
Yeah,
where Operation Rock the Troops approached me through Veterans Foundation, and that Veterans Foundations was through the charity. It's all through the charity. Like it started there, and my life has
wow.
changed. I may have. It's like you went through the first half of your life with absolute hell, not trusting anybody, wearing every Tommy t-shirt you can think of, to now a switch. I don't know what's happened. I can't even explain it.
Yeah,
But I wouldn't be having poetry to write or music to write if those stories didn't happen. I wouldn't be having stories to tell or reasons, or what would I be doing if none of that bad stuff happened? I wouldn't be, there wouldn't be a character, as much of a character or much as a story to tell, or much dark. Most
yeah,
musicians, so when you do the musician interview, most musicians and artists, they've got darkness in them, or they've seen darkness, and that's how they create.
yeah.
And it's just like that happened for a reason. Don't know where I'm going to end up, but I hope it continues.
I'm gonna keenly watch your life from now on, and that sounded a bit stalkerish. Sorry, but I'm interested in the outcome. You know what I mean? I want to see what
Yeah,
happens.
so do I. But then I'm excited, and for the first time, I'm excited not to know in a weird way.
Yeah, yeah.
My
No,
brother,
I get
he's an
that. I get that.
artist. Yeah, he's an artist. He's a designer. My older brother in London, he doesn't speak to like most of the family either. But he said to me, He's got years ahead of people in this kind of industry. He said to me, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And you've got to enjoy
Yeah.
every beautiful moment and be thankful for every single moment and enjoy every moment because you don't know when the train's going to stop and it might not reach that destination. So you just got to enjoy it. I can
I
tell you that.
said, I said something. I said something to somebody once. I said, you know, you live your life. You only live once. And they said, no, you only die once. You live your life every day. And I
Yeah.
thought, fucking hell. You know, I'd never heard of that before, or I'd never thought of it that way before, because the old saying is the other way around, isn't it? And I thought,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. You're dead, but you live every day. So live every day for what you want, for what you can do, for what you get out of it, for what you can give people. You know, it's that you can't just take; you've got to give as well. You know,
Yeah.
you've got to share type of thing, and which is what you're doing. You know, and in my own little way, I'm trying to do. You know,
You
I'm
are
not very good at many
giving.
things, but hopefully, yeah. You know, I try to do it this way. Right, Amber, it's been 2 hours.
No,
I
isn't
think
it?
we've got to the end now. Yeah, it flies, doesn't it?
Well, let
It
me
just
put in here
flies.
then. Guys, if you're listening, do meditation, law of attraction, because that will change your mindset. So you're not addicted to negativity and drama. You'll then become addicted to success. And that's more enjoyable.
Yeah. Do you just want to put a shout out to the charity where people can find them and stuff like that?
So Help for Homeless Veterans, you can follow me on my Facebook page, but they've also got a Facebook page, a website, literally help for number 4 homeless veterans.
Yeah.
They're based in Yorkshire. If anyone wants to send donations or wants to create a fundraiser, that would be amazing because the only way we can help people is with money's coming in, and we can't help other
Yeah.
veterans if money's not coming in, unfortunately. And if anybody in the Yorkshire area, if they're like watching, if they approach Help for Homeless Veterans, then if they veterans that are homeless and they need support, then ping me a shout, then I will get you through the paperwork and try and get you off the streets, save your lives, and try and get you on the straight path again, like me. The path that was in my old
Which has been
life.
amazing.
Yeah.
Been amazing. It's been amazing listening to you. I'm enthralled and I'm looking forward to the next chapter of your life.
Hopefully
Again, I
it's
sound like
slippery.
a
Get me
stalker.
out of there. That is on my that is so as I can't believe you said that because it's actually on my vision board.
Hey, serendipity. It could be the reason I said it. You never know.
Yeah, you need to do a
You
vision board
never
as well.
know.
Have you got one? Have you got a vision board?
No, I've never. No, I've never even thought of anything like that.
But
I'll
because
have to
it
look into
imparts
it.
in your I don't know why it works. But you said you don't know if you believe in faith and hope. And not I'm not 100%, but I'm 99% I am after all this meditation and vision boards and law of attraction.
I'm going to look into it. Right, I'm going to stop the recording now. Like I said before, it's been brilliant listening to your story and having you on. Honestly, thank you
Thank you,
very,
darling.
very much. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I enjoyed recording it. If you could just hit the like button and also if you could subscribe and hit the notification bell, that'd be great because it'll help the channel grow. The more people will see it, the bigger it'll get, and the more guests I can get on, and the more people I can talk to. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, like I said. Look forward to the next one. Hopefully, we'll be out next week as normal. Bye bye now.